Our CEO in one of the recent company meetings was interviewing an ex-president of Tesla, and he was asking him this question to say, what landed you in Tesla? And he said, apparently he asked Elon Musk the same question, why are you hiring? He says, I want to hire people who don't know anything about cars because I'm trying to build a car company that is nothing like any other car. And I cannot build it by people who built all these cars because they will only do incremental change. So I want somebody who doesn't know, because that person will ask the right questions. Because when you don't know, you ask questions.
Absolutely.
Right? When you know everything, you're like, why should I know? I know. And that's when I think the change happens. I think it's very important. I always advise everybody, in your career, if you feel very comfortable at any point, that's the down point of your career. Switch and make yourself vulnerable. And then reinvent yourself, because that's how you'll get to the next.
Hey everyone, welcome to this new episode of No Straight Lines. I'm really excited to bring all the learnings that I have had working with global leaders and actually seeing them struggle, challenged, but also embracing all this learning in their leadership approach. And that is truly the intent of No Straight Lines. We want to have conversations with leaders who have seen multiple different transitions in terms of shifts in technology, shifts in how people come together, work, and then embrace all this learning to refine their leadership approach. With that intent, today I want to talk about the current context. And the context is very important because a lot of us are being affected, impacted, and also sometimes struggling with that context. If you really look at it, what is happening today, it's not something new. We have lived through these kind of disruptions, especially tech disruptions in the past. But what was different that time was that we had time. If you look back, the transitions that have happened, right, from internet to mobile to cloud, we had time as leaders, as individuals, to adapt to that particular shift, that particular disruption. But today, what we are faced with AI is slightly different. The rules of engagement are being rewritten on an everyday basis. And with that particular understanding, I want to talk about a leader who has actually lived through those transitions throughout his career. I'm excited to present to you Rohit Kaila, Head of Technology and Site Leader for Wayfair India TDC. Rohit and I go a long way back. We've probably known ourselves for over a decade. But one thing that I've always been inspired about when I think of Rohit is the effortless leadership that he brings in everything that he does. The humility, the sense of inclusion and innovation that comes beforehand when we think of a leader like Rohit is something that is very inspiring till date for me. And that's why I wanted to have this particular conversation on such an important topic with him today. With that, Rohit, welcome to No Straight Lines, and thank you for making time for this particular conversation.
Thank you for having me here.
And
I love the no straight lines.
Awesome. Let's talk about that. What do you think of No Straight Lines? You know, when I came to you and I unpacked what I really wanted to do in this particular discussion, what came to you?
See, if you look at life in general, right, there's always a mechanism that things will go through their ups and downs. And people who plan for straight lines usually end up in a mechanism where they either are too excited or too upset about where things are. If you accept the fact of life that it's going to go through various different ups and downs and changes, it's much easier to adapt to it. Like I think Mark Tully said, there are no full stops in India, right? And that's what India is about, right? And same way, I think life is all about all the changes that happen around it.
Awesome. Beautifully said. I think we'll probably include it in our promotions as well for the No Straight Lines episodes. Um, I just want to bring us back to the context that I was sharing earlier. And this is happening, right, on a daily basis. You are living through it. But you have also kind of lived through multiple transitions, right? Whether it is tech disruptions, whether it is reimagining yourself. You started your career with Bell Labs. I mean, literally, I think the information revolution started with them. And then you moved to a startup, telecom, um, e-commerce, fintech. I think you have probably lived through all these tech disruptions in the last 3 decades of being in the corporate space. And I feel like a lot of us probably would not even have those many shifts throughout our entire life and career. How does all that prepare you for where we are today, right? This particular AI disruption that we are seeing, a lot of leaders I speak with come to me and say, hey, everything that I understood about leadership is being rewritten. As leaders, we were supposed to have the answers. As leaders, we are supposed to guide the team. I think writing a mission statement, creating a blueprint for the next 5 years is today, done in like 5 minutes by
Yep.
leveraging any of the AI tools. How do you become relevant again as a leader when this shift in the way people kind of work, the way leaders lead is happening?
I think great thought process in terms of talking through what is changing, right? But if you look at it, I, not for people to guess my age, but the first time I used an email was when I actually went to the US for my higher studies and masters. Before that, I didn't know there was a concept that you could actually send an email to somebody. That's the disruption, and that is the time frame that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It was one of the most amazing aspects when internet really came of age. Probably a life transforming or a complete industry transforming experience that happened. Telecom, amazing revolution. From when I was at Bell Labs, we used to build these large 5 ESS switches that used to go in to do switching networks, and that our research, we replaced it by a small machine that could do all the switching out there.
Wow.
And I remember Lucent coming back and saying, but you are attacking our basic bread and butter. What are we going to do? Like, it's better we disrupt it than somebody else does.
Right.
Right. Then you go back, fast forward yourself to Yahoo and the internet era, and how that completely transformed what people were doing. So you look at each of these transformations and you realize one thing that is the same is the fact that they are all completely transformative changes.
Right.
One thing is different is the sphere and the context in which they happen.
True.
Right? And how amazing changes are there in terms of changing everybody's lives. Right? Now, if you look at it, last 3 decades, 3.5 decades have probably been the time when there is maximum amount of wealth creation that has happened in the universe, right? In India, in the world, everywhere. So it has, those transformations have led to hugely positive outcome for every single entity. Now, if I talk about just India, for example, each of these transformations have also been democratization of technology, right? When I was going for the US, there was one book kept in one place where I could go and see how my university is going to look like when I go there. That's all.
Right.
To today, where somebody in the village who gets an admission could actually go and communicate with the professor, talk about everything, and move forward.
Yeah.
It has been democratization. How have we as a nation gained from a democratization? Every single time we have been democratized, we have actually gone and unlocked value in the country. Same way, every corporation that has been innovative has unlocked value for themselves.
Right.
The world economy has grown and everything has gone in the positive aspect of it. While it looks like very disruptive and difficult time, they have all led to great outcomes. Not for everybody, only for people, or mostly for people who have utilized that and gone to the next step in terms of what they are doing. Now, if you follow that trend, what is happening today, and you very rightly said, the difference is that it is happening at a pace never seen before.
Right.
It is happening now in a economic model that is little bit more constrictive, because we have enough geopolitical issues that are going on. The world economy is not growing, and at the same time this disruption is happening. So that kind of makes things more difficult, which leads to the third part of it, because it is directly impacting employment and people's jobs and everything else in the short term. So as a result of which, there's definitely going to be a short term pain, but the long term perspective of democratization and technology has always been positive for the industry, has been always positive for humankind, and that, I think, trend will continue. Right? So whatever we have learned in each one of these things stays, but they need to get accelerated to the next level for people to be able to say, okay, now I need to do that in a much shorter time frame.
Right.
We used to wait for releases, external releases, which will happen once every 6 months, and then we'll go adjust to it. Today, a new AI model comes in 2 months, and my engineers have to adapt to that model because everything they assumed in the past one is gone. So the pace is extremely fast, but at the same time, the the nuts and bolts of the axioms remain the same.
Right.
That hasn't changed. So I think we have to use the same aspects that we had before, adapt to it much faster, and I think we will be in a much better world as we go.
Awesome. And I think the velocity, the adaptability that you talked about, and also being open to new way of doing things, I think is key, right, in these transitions, right, that we're seeing. On the talent side, I wanted to talk about something that you have said in the past conversations already, and it's something I found very interesting, especially when we talk about AI, right? You've talked about how perhaps the mid to senior level professionals, tech professionals, are perhaps going to have a bigger challenge, right? Transitioning through or reimagining in this new AI first kind of an era versus the freshers or the early career hires, right? That we talk about, who are perhaps more AI native from day one. Can you unpack that a little, and also to someone who's probably in that particular mid to like 10 years, 15, 20 years kind of career space, what can they do differently to really embrace AI and stay relevant in this new normal?
Yeah, I think the key aspect that we have to remember is that always in life, learning is easy, unlearning is difficult, right? And every single point a big transformation happens, unlearning becomes a very critical element for people who already learned something. And that is where the mid-level managers, leaders that are out there, and even very senior leaders as well, have to learn to unlearn a lot of things before they get there. For very senior leaders, typically it is little easier because they've done it before. Right? For the next level who are seeing it maybe for the first time or the second time, the unlearning process is more complex.
Right.
For the younger generation who have come out of universities today or in an early career, they already are in the new world. The Gen Z world already understands that their behavior, their lingos, their everything is very tuned to the current level of technology that is out there. But they now have the challenge to learn to make sure that they can get to the next level for them to be relevant in the model that is out there. So every single person has to basically make adjustments to what they are trying to do. So now if you come to the mid-level aspect of it, I am a great individual contributor at a mid-level. I have coded all my life. I've done great designs. I've built everything really good. I've developed a lot of hard skills in terms of what I'm trying to do. Now I suddenly come and half of these skills are being done by an AI agent that's going to do it in in a fraction of the time.
Absolutely.
What do? I have two paths. I go back and say, yeah, but I can do it better. Clearly, you can do it better for some period of time, but that's not going to be there for a long period of time because this system is learning really, really fast.
Yeah.
So as a result of which, you can fight it or you can accept it and go back and say, what do I have? I have great ability to design systems. I have great soft skills. And I always tell
Mm.
people this, that whenever you go to a company for a resume, you write this big resume that has, I did this project, this project. The second part of the resume that you never write, how you did it. That's your value, your culture, your soft skills. They become not just relevant, they become even more relevant. Why do you only focus on the front side of it? You can focus on the back side of it. So as a result of which, these people now have to go back and transform and say, look, I am going to be a friend of technology. I'm going to adapt it. Things that somebody can do faster and better than me, I am going to let that system do it, while I will go dip into the things that I am really strong at and keep moving them to this side. It's quite possible that these systems will start designing also tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's quite possible that these systems will start debugging and doing various other things as well tomorrow. Our annual reviews, these systems can now tell you which person has written the best code. You don't have to tell me. So it's okay to keep shifting left and making sure that these things that can be automated do not fight that. There are a lot of people who are trying to fight that. And I believe they will sort of start becoming irrelevant because they would not have spent as much of their energy adapting to the new world and making themselves even more efficient. In the previous era, if I could build a system in, I wrote code and I got all of this stuff and built this system, I could build a new system in 3 weeks. Now I can do it in 3 days. What does that mean? That means that I can now build in 3 weeks 7 systems. Because the work is not reducing. It's not as if everything in the world has been solved and the technology has been created. The important thing for me is that how do I shift myself right and shift all the work left for me to be able to make sure that I start becoming relevant. Because your skills, your design, your abilities remain the same. Do not fight it, adapt to it. Right? That is my worry for some of the folks in the middle who are maybe thinking twice to say, oh, no, I don't think this is going to happen. I can write better code, right? They are not innovating fast enough because there's a mental block. Those who are will be in a tremendously great place going forward, right? Young generation, I think what they need to figure out is the fact that I have all the skills, but I don't have the experience.
Correct.
So how can I now, and AI is now going to teach you experience. So how can I start developing my softer skills, develop that much, much faster in terms of moving that. And at a senior leadership level, the entire expectation is that how do you actually make sure that you get this entire system to work really, really well? Make sure the middle people move faster, make sure the young generation is becoming productive very fast, and the whole engine moves at a much higher pace. And that's really that each level has to transform in their own way to make a difference.
Yeah. It's almost like you need to have like a handshake with AI, make them your buddy, but also tell them,
Absolutely.
Hey, you do all this, but when you get stuck, you talk to me.
Absolutely.
And I will tell you the context in which you need to operate. I think, what you said really kind of stands out, right? The understanding of the context, is the relevance that you can create for yourself and use all the tools that you have to really kind of, maximize the opportunity that you have in front of yourself.
Yeah. And I always tell people, question everything that you're doing. Take your X number of hours that you spend, break it down into what you are spending it on. And if there is something else that can do that for you, let them do it.
Totally.
So you can then focus on something else and you can move up the ladder. Now, of course, in the short term, there'll always be issues to say, oh my God, what if the jobs go away, lesser number of people are required and all that stuff. That transformation always leads to some pain, right? And it's okay to go through that pain. I would rather be very skilled and laid off than be unskilled and have a job today. Wow. Right? So if your company is saying, no, don't worry, your job stays, but don't worry about using AI, leave that company.
Wow.
Go to an organization that's saying, make yourself so good that you might be irrelevant in this company or in this environment, but you are so skilled that you will find 20 other things that you can do. So make sure you focus on relevance. Make sure you focus on moving up the chain. Don't worry about the disruptions that will happen in the middle.
Wow. Very well said. On the questions and the learning experiences, I've heard you in the past, talk about the learning experiences that one should have, right? And I think, if I remember it right, you said that the best learning experiences don't perhaps give you the right answers, but it sharpens your ability to ask the right questions to yourself as a leader. I found that very, very, interesting. So first, tell me what really led to this particular insight, right? Like there must be a moment of maybe in time that kind of helped you understand this particular theme around learning experiences and how it enriches you by asking the right questions as a leader. So tell me about that, and also in the context of what you're seeing today, right? We talked about AI and relevance from talent perspective. What kind of questions AI is asking us from a personal development perspective that you would like to talk about?
Think if we philosophically look back and say what makes us learn, right? It's a very critical element because that's what human race has gone up in the ladder of, in Maslow's hierarchy, because we've just learned how to learn really well. I think the key aspect is some degree of hunger and vulnerability is very important for you to learn. The moment you believe that you know everything, you'll stop learning, right? Work is a very great place to do that. So what I always feel is that what I've tried to do in my career as well is, if you switch domains, sometimes switch companies, sometimes switch bosses, if you make yourself vulnerable, you tend to learn better.
Mm-hmm.
There's this whole concept of stress. There is a good stress and there is a bad stress. If we never had stress, human beings would have never learned how to run and escape from the wild animals.
Yeah.
If you have bad stress, then you have anxiety and problem and you'll kill yourself.
Yeah.
So the good stress is important, because if you didn't have that, you'll not do anything. Now think about it. When I went and joined Yahoo, for example, I was running, my boss hired me to run advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And my only question to him was, I have no idea what advertising is. I've never built a single system. I hate clicking on ads. Why would you hire somebody like me? And his answer to me was, exactly the reason why I hired you is because you don't know anything about this space.
Oh, wow.
So you'll probably think of it from outside.
Awesome.
So when I came in, I was lost for weeks, months, because I didn't know that space, which made me hungry to learn that space. Because I was asking, why is it done that way? And a lot of people are like, why are you asking this question? It's always been done that way. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is that when you make yourself vulnerable in a space that you are like a kid, you will learn. The kids learn most. And we stop learning at some time. We stop being creative at some time because we think we know how to walk, we know how to do all of these things, so we don't need that. So I think creating that inner desire for you to be vulnerable enough for you to ask the questions and be maybe stressed or threatened, if that is the right word, maybe a little harsher word. But if you do that, your opportunity to learn becomes much, much faster.
Yeah.
Now, in the AI world, this becomes even more relevant, right? Because you have no extra information than the other person has. And I was asking, I support some of these universities. I was going there and I asked some of the professors, how is your life changing in the new world? Because you go to teach this class and you say a word, the person types it and they have much better answers than you. So your knowledge is now not anymore that is required. So in larger companies like ours, people who had been working here for a long time, they had a lot of domain expertise. This is how it happened, then is lost, because now you can get all that information to AI. AI will tell you all the answers and you know history before that person can tell you the history. So now you are sort of vulnerable from that aspect of it to say, how do I create value that is not based on memory and information, but really based on innovation and things that we are trying to do. And it's a little difficult because remember, we come from an education system that was largely built by the British to make clerks, right? It was based on knowledge.
Right.
And now that knowledge doesn't really mean anything because it's available to everybody. So I think in the AI world, this becomes very much more important because you have a value creation that you can do in that aspect of it, but you have to make yourself vulnerable enough for you to be able to learn that.
Yeah.
And that is critical. And people tend to avoid doing that.
So true. And I think, you touched upon it. Being curious, right? Like having that curiosity versus coming from the place of knowing, I think just shifts, the focus, because when you are coming from the place of knowing, you're largely focused inward, right? You're trying to find the answers that perhaps you know about, versus when you are being curious, you are looking outward and looking at every place that you can find new learning. And I think that's the shift that you talked about, also like being vulnerable to say that, hey, I may not know this particular insight or answer, and can I ask for help? Can I ask others? Can I learn something new? And I think that's really amazing.
Yeah, our CEO in one of the recent company meetings was interviewing an ex-president of Tesla, and he was asking him this question to say, "What landed you in Tesla?" And he said, apparently he asked Elon Musk the same question: "Why are you hiring?" He says, "I want to hire people who don't know anything about cars, because I'm trying to build a car company that is nothing like any other car company.
Right.
And I cannot build it by people who built all these cars before, because they will only do incremental change. So I want somebody who doesn't know, because that person will ask the right questions. Because when you don't know, you ask questions.
Absolutely.
Right? When you know everything, you're like, why should I know? I know already." And that's when I think the change happens. So I think it's very important. I always advise everybody, in your career, if you feel very comfortable at any point, that's the down point of your career. Switch and make yourself vulnerable, and then reinvent yourself, because that's how you'll get to the next peak in your life.
Amazing. And that brings me to the culture question that, again, when I was just preparing for this particular conversation, I was reading through your previous, external conversations, and of course, the insight that I have knowing you over years. You look at culture in a very different way than perhaps anyone else that I've seen in this space. And it was so evident to me when I came here last time, and thanks for giving me the tour of the campus. Even the campus actually is imagined with a lot of local cultural context, right? The UNESCO World Heritage sites that have been beautifully captured in this particular campus was a reflection of what you had said in one of your previous interactions about you want everyone here in the team here to feel the same heartbeat as the global team, or the ones that probably are closer to the headquarters, right? And that really kind of reflected in what I saw, right? Even though Wayfair is here in India, you are so relevant to the local context. And that's the thing that I was talking about, inclusion and innovation coming together. So unpack that particular aspect of why culture is such a big differentiator for how we lead as leaders, and what have you seen play out in your own leadership journey so far?
Yeah, I think at the outset, like I said before, I think people, I would love to see people write resumes where they write the cultural bent of mind that they have. They only write about all the things that they have done, which is the hard skills, not the soft skills. Now, if you look at a company, you build a great company, everything is very good, you have a business idea, everything can be copied. Yeah, you can go put and say, I have a patent here, patent there, doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, every hard skill or hard aspect that you built of a company, another company can copy it. And in AI era, you can do it like this.
Yeah.
What one company can never copy from another company is the culture, because that is innately built in that company.
Yeah.
Right? And each of these companies, especially the great ones, have built that over a period of time. And we were at Intuit together, and we know how much the culture was such a critical part of Intuit's value system.
Absolutely.
Right? So every company that I've worked for has that innate aspect of that culture that is very critical. Now, why is it that so critical? Because it's never about what, it's about the how. If you fix the how, the what becomes very, very easy. Right? Now, in a GCC models like the one that we set up, now if I was an Indian startup or catering to the Indian market, born and brought up in India startup that is out there, your culture is local, you know what you're trying to do. Now, in a GCC model, your customers, your business leaders, a lot of the stuff is remote.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to fall to a place where you go back and say, and that's how GCCs originally started. I'm a
Yeah.
back office, give me work, I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
And that's all it is, right? The key part that GCCs that have done really well is where they have integrated the two organizations really well, right? And when you do that, you have to do it at a cultural level.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, for any company, what is the most important thing is the customer. That's it, right?
Totally.
Nobody really cares if the software for that customer is written in location A, location B, location, nobody matters. At the end of the day, the customer is important. The pain of the customer is important. So a lot of the time GCCs come here and said, okay, all this is great, but if there is a problem, it happens in your time zone, you worry about it.
Yeah.
Right? Give me innovative work. The only innovative work is solving customer problems. That's the only innovation that we should be doing.
Right.
Should not worry about anything else, because that is the most critical aspect of it. So as a result of which, the hearts have to beat together. So when we set up the center here, and even when we set up the center, or we've transformed previously in companies that I've worked for where we've done transformation, the part that we've done is that we've made sure that the heartbeat is synced between the two sides. Because when that happens, the chances are that you will see the pain, the pleasure, the happiness of the customer, the pain of the customer, the business objectives all in the same light. And I don't want to do one before the other. So there was always this thought to say, okay, set up a company, let's hire so many people, then we'll figure out about that. No. Culture has to be built on day one. It cannot be a day 10 affair, because if you don't build it on day 5, then you will probably take 50 days for you to get to the right place, while you can get to the 10th day here and be the right aspect of it. So we've been very critical about, or very careful about it. We've critically looked at behaviors that we don't believe belong in this organization. And I invite the people, when I meet all the new joiners that come into the company, and I invite them that while I hope that you will work here for the rest of your life, chances are you will not. So the number of years that you spend here, and hopefully there'll be enough number of years, you will gain from this culture and contribute that culture.
Right.
You can always come here and say, people think, oh, if I do something bad, or go to all these random sites and say bad things about the company, I'll hurt the company. Company never gets hurt. Who gets hurt? You. Because slowly that falls into your DNA, and then you can never get away from it. And these people never have careers after a certain point. They'll never break the glass ceiling. So it's very important to build it from day one. The office that you are in, the people that you interact with, the way you conduct yourself is critical. And most importantly, how you look at the customer.
Totally.
Right? And that we've tried to follow here, try to follow in all the organization. And Intuit was a great place where I learned some of this stuff that we really, really well. So, you gain these things from each company, and then you put that into it. But do not ignore that second half of the resume. I always tell people, at my level, I get to interview people who will not come for the interview unless their hard skills are all taken care of. Right. So how do I pick them? I don't pick them that he wrote this code or she wrote this code in this much time versus this time. I only interview them on the soft skills, because they exist, they meet it, otherwise they don't.
Absolutely. And personally, I mean, it gives me so much of energy when we talk about culture, because we have had the good fortune of working in companies, like Intuit, building, a culture that perhaps we are all proud of, right, at scale, and seeing what that can do for you, not just in terms of enriching people who come in that particular environment, but also the business impact, right? Together, we have seen that. So bringing it all together, Rohit, I want to go back to where I started, right? You have seen such large tech disruptions, right? You talked about navigating that for different talent audiences. But folks who are looking at this particular conversation today and are kind of struggling, you unpacked what you have experienced as leaders and how you want others to kind of embrace that learning. But if there is one key theme that you want to kind of leave with the audience, not looking at themselves today, but looking at maybe 5 years down the line, because all these disruptions, transitions that we are seeing technology-wise will play out, right? And you touched upon, the culture, the core skills that one needs as an individual, as a professional. So, what would be your ask, or maybe an offer to anyone who's looking at this particular episode and going through that sense of uncertainty about themselves, about being relevant? What would you leave them with?
I was I was telling somebody, some of the younger folks who joined us from university, and I was telling them that there's no better time to be young. Now, we all know that we all want to be young,
Yeah.
but this is for a different reason. And the reason why I would like to be young right now, beyond the natural fact that everybody wants to be young, is the fact that this is such a disruptive moment. And I have lived my life through disruptive moments as opportunity moments, right? Um, I, I mean, I would love to be a fresh graduate today, even in a potential environment where I don't have a job, but knowing that the technology has been democratized so much that I can do anything that I want. There are startups today where they are founder and engineers, nothing in the middle. You've cut through the entire chain of what you're trying to do. You can think today and create a stack of anything out of thin air in a very short period of time. Wayfair has spent all these years building a strong technology stack, this, that, everything. You could actually take some of that stuff and say, I can build it in next 6 months with two engineers, which probably used to take an army of people today. So your mind now, in terms of thinking of ideas and converting them into reality, that time scale has shortened by a huge margin, right? And that is an opportunity. Because today, if you thought that, oh my God, I have this idea, now for me to get a prototype will take me, X million dollars and Y number of months or years to get it done. That both of those have come down by an order of magnitude today, right? So that's opportunity space, because now we have democratized everything by making it easier for you to do things. So as a result of which, this is probably, and it is going to lead to probably the maximum amount or continued maximum amount of wealth creation in the environment. If you look at, we just saw the SpaceX IPO, right? Great technology from space, right? He actually folded AI as well into the whole thing. So you look at where things are going, and it's not just misplaced exuberance that the markets are going up and the valuations are going up. Yeah, there's always some misplaced, some exuberance out there, some optimism out there, but there is a fundamental shift that's going on. And you are part of that shift, because today you do not need to go to a university or a Ivy League or be connected to a really rich person for you to open an AI bot and get your answers, or start, this thing and start writing code. People are writing code in languages they did not even understand, don't even learn, right? I know of people who did. One of my persons was telling me that his son never learned C++ or C, wrote a new browser in C++.
Wow.
In a record time, because that person was willing to think from that aspect of it. So what I would want people to do is that instead of treating that as a problem, think of this as an opportunity, right? Because every problem is an opportunity, right? And the tools that are available to you are great. Adapt those tools. Make sure that you continuously hone your skills in taking those tools and moving to the next level and next level and next level. And do not think that is out there. If, Sabir Bhatia could go and build hotmail.com in the US at that time when people didn't know what was going on, you can build anything today because the tools are much easier for you to build. Right? So no better exciting time than that. Yes, there is disruption. Yes, some people will not get jobs. Yes, some jobs will get lost. Industry will go through some transformation. All of that is going to happen, right? You look at a car coming in front of you with high beams on, you don't look at the high beam. You look at the opportunity that is out there to pass that car and move forward. So your opportunity today is what is available to you. Convert this challenge into an opportunity because the tools are there, and you will be creating wonders. That's what I
Uh,
feel.
Beautifully summed up. Thank you so much, Rohit. For me, I think my personal takeaway, from the conversation is it just starts with us, right? How can we embrace this new mindset? And also, there are two key things that you talked about for me, which I'm noting down is, you need to have humility as well as courage to really reimagine yourself, and the reinvention has to start with yourself. So, thank you so much for all those amazing insights and unpacking your leadership journey with us with full openness. And that's exactly what we want to see when we have these conversations. And with that, I would like to close this particular episode of No Straight Lines. I hope you found this enriching, engaging, and inspiring. I definitely felt that way. And looking forward to speaking with you soon in our next one.